Okay, great. Let's carry on. 250. I'm sure you've read this question. Interesting question. This question is a bit odd in that they're almost wanting us to just do this manually to look at what's going on, which is why they give us a table. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not usual. Typically, we're doing what we did using simultaneous equations, trying to find A, trying to find B, especially when we're talking about pricing, or even when we're talking about costing, we're looking at high-low methods. So you do get these kind of scenarios where you're having to kind of apply and actually physically do some manual calculation. But I think it's just running with it and trying to understand what the scenario is. Typically, if you remember when we were in class, I explained that this idea of I'll just go to this idea that, as you can imagine, the idea that you have to work, the fact that you have to, this theory of demand, this demand curve means what we're saying is for you to sell the next product, because technically of competition, you have to drop your price. This is your classic price taking model, which is why everything we're doing, P is equal to A minus 2BQ. If you can see, this minus shows that it's slanting downward. So this is very much a price taking curve. When I say price taking curve, this is a demand curve that's slanting because you have to accept a falling price. Marginal revenue is falling with every additional unit, which is, sorry, this was A minus BQ, this is A minus 2BQ. This is very much what the model for a competitive market. This model won't work, as you can imagine, for a monopoly. It just wouldn't work so much. Although I know we don't discuss, you don't have monopolies in your syllabus, that degree of economics, but sort of the argument really is that this model really wouldn't work for a monopoly where you're accepting and charging your own prices. You charge one price. So if you like, a monopoly curve would almost look like, you charge one price all the time. So the cost will come up, will go down, whatever, but you're charging the same price irrelevant because you can. So with output, you don't increase your pricing. You're the only one. So the model doesn't really work like that. We just have P being a fixed figure, almost like P is equal to A. So you then have to say A is equal to, at what point? So you say A is equal to MC, if you like, and that would be your scenario. So which is why then you would, a table kind of, because a table would have this price all the time, and then you can compare the revenue coming in with the costs. So that's the difference, kind of why the curve why the tabular method makes sense. And the truth is, even with the tabular method, when you have odd things happening, like costs that don't follow your normal pattern of just, if you like, costs that don't follow your normal pattern of costs that don't follow your normal pattern in terms of like that, where you have this stable variable cost and you have a fixed cost. So when you have things that look like this, and then you have it's going up, and then it's going up again. So you have stepped costs. Again, you have the formulas or the equations don't quite work. So the table just makes it practical and real. Okay, and given, so now that you have that as context to kind of see what I'm talking about, let's jump into the question. Again, you've read the question. Again, please make sure you always read it. So what we get given is this information about the average costs, and we have total fixed costs, and we're told that these things are sold in batches of thousands, and we have the expected selling price. So the question really, what we really have to do ultimately is just to kind of quickly work it out and see what's going on. I'm just going to do it manually. I'm not going to create a table. I'm just going to do it with my pen and then just work that way, and then you can sort of see it. So in terms of understanding what's going on in terms of revenue, well, I mean, I'm told, I'm not even going to do the full hand. I'm told that I'm selling, I'm looking in the textbook so I can see the question again. So it says that for batch 1, you have 1,000 units in these batch. So I have 1,000 units here, and I'm selling each of them for $20. Right. Then in terms of the variable costs, well, I'm told that, again, my variable cost is, yes, if you like, I'm told that my variable cost is £10, if you like, per unit. And so again, I have 1,000 units times £10, and I have a fixed cost. So you can see all I'm doing is literally just answering the table. For my second batch, I'm selling 2,000 units times 18, right? And then of course it's telling me that the cost per unit is £10. So I'm sorry, my average cost per unit is £8.80. I have to be careful there. So obviously somehow I'm getting a discount, and it tells us that tax duty falls as we're and I have 10,000. And then here I'm selling 3,000 items now at £16, right? And then here I'm now doing 3,000 items at £7.80. And then my fixed costs this time have stepped up to 12,000. So you can see you can imagine the equations would have been really wonky. I'd have had to adapt the equations. I mean, they're adaptable, but that's just really, they don't want you to do that. So you can see when you have that lack of adaptability, it's best to then 4,000 times 13. And then what do we have here? We have, in terms of the variable costs, we have 4,000 units times £6.40, and we still have the cost at that fixed level of 12,000. And then here we have here 5,000 units times 12, and then we have here 5,000 units times £6.40, and here we have £14,000. So I'm just going to change my pen color and quickly calculate all of this out very quickly. Here I have 20,000, here I have 36,000, here I have 48,000, here we have 52,000, and here we have 60,000, and here we have 10,000, here we have 17,600. Oops, where did that go? 17,600. Here we have 23,400. Here we have 25,600. And here we have 32,000. So now I need to sort of have this minus this and just really literally just, so you do that. If you do that, you'll see that your total profits, here's 0 here, 36 minus 27,600 takes us to 8,400. This takes us to 12,600. This takes us to 14,400. And this takes us to 14,000. So at least we have our table. So the question here is, how many should we sell, if you like? What's our optimal point? So really our optimal point here from this information here is MR is equal to MC at 4,000 units. Sell here because that's your maximum, if you like, situation. Those are the maximum profits you're getting at that point, if you like. You're still making profits, but you're now your profits are lower with every additional unit, is what they're telling you. In effect, you can sort of, you can sort of see why revenue is falling, fixed costs are going up, if you like. You've been able to stabilize somehow on your variable costs, but you're beginning to have issues here with your fixed costs. So this is like I say, the kind of a hands-on one to do, because it's not your typical variable costs being regular, because there's no regularity here, is there? It's changing. Okay, so let's see. Then the next question. So so the answer there is 4,000 or 4 batches, so to speak. Which of the following statements? So the question two says that, and I want to look, just because we're here. Let's look at keep this information. I'm going to have to come back to it. I'll keep it so you can now go. Let's go back and see the question. So the question says to us that, which of the following statements regarding Joul's fixed costs, if you like, are correct? Well, 100%. If we come back here, we can see that definitely the fixed cost is stepped, right? We have that, and then it steps, it jumps up, and then it jumps up. That's the first thing. So definitely 1 is correct. Then let's look at the next question. it says that increasing batch sizes from 1,000 to 2,000 would dramatically reduce setup costs. Well, let's look at it. When you decided to make this thing in 1,000, here you had no profits, literally. So if you made them in twos, is what they're telling you. So don't make them in ones. If you make them in twos, and it's telling you that most of your fixed costs are setups. So if you can basically skip this in effect, so they're almost telling you to get rid of this. So pretty much go from here straight away, and you would only have basically, you would only be dealing with you basically 36,000 minus 17,600, and you pay that fixed cost once and get your total profit of 8,400 straight away. Yeah, that sort of makes sense. So you would be definitely reducing your setup costs. Definitely, because you won't imagine it's one setup. You've done two setups now. One here, and then there's another one. So you've done two setups, so basically £20,000 in total in terms of fixed costs, and you've made only 8,400. If you do one setup, you get rid of that one, and then you only have 10,000, and you've made profit as well. So yes, 100%, definitely you're reducing your setup costs and you're increasing your profits. So definitely that is the answer. Both are correct. So 2 is C as well. Let's look at question 3 and see what they want. Sometimes I don't think I've... Yes, interesting. So it says the following statements have been made about the tabular approach. So with the tabular approach, there must be a consistent relationship between price. No, that's the whole point of the tabular approach. It's because there's not a consistent relationship with going the tabular approach. If there was a consistent approach as we know it, as like I've discussed, we wouldn't be using the tabular approach. We're using the tabular approach pretty much because we don't have a consistent approach. So one is wrong. The tabular approach is only suitable for companies operating in monopoly. Yeah, I mean, I'd go as far as saying that, yes, that's true. Because really, there's no other way to analyze your information. And in companies that are having a lot of movement in their curves, we just can't, there's just lack of regularity. So I think so. I think you can only use, yes, I'm sure the tabular approach is only suitable for companies operating in monopoly, yes. Any other companies that have some variability, we can rework your curves, but if you're operating monopoly, well, then we just have to literally just write everything out and see what's going on. So definitely, probably only 2, yes, I'd go with only 2. It's a slightly tricky question. Only 2 is true. Only 2 is true. So let's go back to the story and see what's going on here with this one. Again, like I said, all these, you have to almost physically do this. That's the kind of way they're making you, and don't be afraid to do that. That's quite, just kind of go with it. You don't always have to be using the formulas. So we're told that this business is, I just want you to be able to see the whole thing. Okay, no, we can't. So we're told that this business is producing luxury earphones. You've read this, of course. So what they're doing is, in the US, it is charging low prices to gain rapid market share, which looks like market penetration to me. And in Europe, it is initially charging high prices to earn to maximize profits while demand is relatively inelastic, and that looks like market skimming to me. And that's what this question is sort of asking. So let's look at that very quickly and answer that. So what are they saying? So they're saying here that you need sorry. Yes, here we are. Yes, which penetration pricing is being used? Which price strategies are they using in each market? So like I said, in the US, it must be penetration pricing and price skimming in Europe. Good. And then the last one is again like quite a practical. Again, like I say, it's almost like a hands-on question. So you can see what they're telling us here is that, okay, you currently do, we heard that you can do a maximum of 72,000 per year. So again, I'm going to go to a graph, and it says the demand will reduce by 8,000 for every 5. It says that the maximum demand is 72,000, and the demand will reduce by 8,000 units for every £5. So you almost need to kind of have, which is why doing questions is helpful, is because, if you like, sometimes you might not see it straight away, but again, by doing these questions, you get a chance to kind of to sort of see what they're doing. Sorry, I think I've just lost the internet. Just want to make sure this is still recording. Okay. Yes. So, yeah. Can't get that to record. I hope this is still recording. Okay. Anyway, let's just go. So let me just create another. Oh, yes, I'm back. Oh, brilliant. So let's just create that chart. Let's just have a new slide. And let me just show you what I mean. So what are they saying here? So when you look at the demand curve, again, like I say, this all comes with a bit of practice. If someone is saying the maximum you can do is 72,000 units, remember this is output and this is price. So typically, what they mean by the maximum demand is what's the most you can actually sell. So that's 72,000. I mean, it's rare that you're going to, well, literally, that's when the price is almost like literally zero. So we're sort of arguing here, if you like, So, and so the argument is that every time you reading the question, it says here, you could probably have done this a different way. When I say different way, you could have done it without looking. I'm just trying to chart it for you. And it's not that you're really going to do this. It's just so you understand what's going on. And then it says that every time the price goes up by £5. So imagine this is close to nothing. It doesn't have to be zero. You're selling, and everyone's willing to buy it in this market at a really low price. Let's just almost go close to zero. So you increase it by £5, and it says you lose 8,000 units. So pretty much you've gone from there. That's your new point. And 72,000 minus 8 is 64,000. So that's your first point over there. Then you increase it by another £5, so you're now selling it at 10. You lose another 8, so you now have 56,000. So you increase it by £5, you lose another 8, so you're at 15. And then you have 48,000. You increase it by another 8. You increase it by another 8. You increase it by another 5. You lose another 8, so that's 20. So you're at 40,000. And then again, you increase it by another 5, you lose another 8, and you're at £25. And that's what they're telling us. They're actually telling us, listen guys, this is where we think this is your optimal point to sell at £25, because this is the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. We've done that, they're telling us. So your answer there becomes £25, because they've told us in the question that the profit maximizing level is 32,000 units. So that's how to kind of work it out. It's kind of just getting used to the again, there's theory reading all of this, and then there's actual us doing questions to see how we see the interpretation of all of this. Cool, great stuff. That's 250. I will see you in question 251.